I'm Trish.
And I'm Thaddeus, and you're listening to the Fallen Short podcast. This week, we are continuing our conversation about getting back to church in the middle of a pandemic.
As you know, if you live in Minnesota, this last week, Governor Walz issued a mandate saying that we have to wear a mask inside public places, and that has greatly affected the whole get back to church thing, and we just wanted to touch on that today. We realize that a lot of you listening may have very vast, different viewpoints on whether or not people should wear a mask in public, and some of you might yourself have to wear a mask because you're immunocompromised or you're elderly, but we're not going into like the political aspect of whether or not you should wear a mask. We will leave that up to you to make those decisions on your own.
Or the scientific aspect, because we're
Sure.
not doctors and we're not scientists. We're just everyday normal people, quote unquote.
Absolutely. And for me personally, Thaddeus and I might feel differently about different things when it comes to the mask. For me, it made me very angry. Just to be real with you guys, like I talked about in the last podcast that I had worked through the whole going back to church. Okay, there's no childcare, so my kid has to sit in the service with me. Okay, I have to make a reservation. So if I make a reservation, am I taking a spot from somebody else? And we kind of broke that down in the last podcast about the process of getting back to church. So now the governor throws in this whole loophole here where all of a sudden now we have to wear masks to church, and because it's a public place, indoor place. And that's something now I had to process through again, because I'm processing how I feel about masks personally, which is maybe different than all of you listening, which is totally fine. And I had to process through like, okay, I want to be at church and I want to be at the stores and I want to do these different things. So now in order to do those things, I have to wear a mask. Let's just say Wednesday night, I was in my bedroom and Thaddeus is out in the living room, and I was venting about my feelings about masks because until today, Sunday, I had yet to wear a mask really. And I just for me has not been a political thing at all. For me, just since the beginning, I didn't even know honestly that wearing a mask or not wearing a mask was political until recently when I heard a podcaster talk about it. But for me, it was just something that I feel like wasn't a value. I had to wear a mask. And it's not because I don't respect other people and I don't love other people deeply. But for me personally, it was just something that I felt like I'm kind of a germaphobe anyways. And I wash my hands a lot and I cough in my elbow and I sneeze into my elbow and I'm healthy and I wouldn't normally go out in public if I'm sick anyways. So it's just like all these things, my whole rationale of why I don't wear a mask. And I don't watch a lot of news or anything like that. So I know there's a lot of political news outlets out there that have a lot of different viewpoints. But for me personally, just something my own thoughts about masks. And so when the governor announced about the masks, it just made me so angry. And I just really processed it, and I was like, okay, so I don't even want to go out to stores if I have to wear a mask. I basically have not been at Costco since they required masks, and now I'm like, okay, well, now I'm not going to be able to go to church, and it's just so dumb trying to process through all of this, and my poor husband had to listen to me process through it, and I was wrestling with a bunch of different places in the Bible where there were different issues with government and stuff like that. But that's not what we're talking about. But I got to this point of my frustration where I was like, okay, so Trish, how stupid is this? You're going to let wearing a piece of cloth on your face keep you from going to church. And it just made me like open my eyes and made me realize how dumb that was and how all I can do. Basically, I just felt in my spirit, kick the devil's butt, put on the mask and go to church.
And if just to talk about my viewpoints in general, I wouldn't say that I'm a pro-mask person or an anti-mask person. I personally don't like wearing a mask. Again, with what Trish is saying, if I'm healthy, then why should I need to wear a mask is kind of my thought process. I know that, especially on social media, I have plenty of people who are pro or against masks. And I can see their viewpoints and I can agree with
See
what
both
they're
sides.
saying on both sides. And so for me, I'm probably more of a people pleaser to a degree. And if I'm being asked to wear a mask to go to a store, well, first of all, is it a store that I need to go to? Because then maybe I just won't go to that store. But now, any store, I'm going to need to. And yes, there are exemptions. There's health issues or mental health issues or anything like that that pretty much anybody could just say they're exempt and nobody's supposed to ask them. But, there's going to be somebody that will. And for me, I don't, as much as I could just say, no, it's uncomfortable, I can't do it. Well, I can do it. So I will do it if I'm being asked to do it. Doesn't mean I'm doing it willingly. It just means that, okay, I'll do it. I got to go to the store. I guess I'll wear this for the 15 minutes I'm there. If I need to wear it to go to church, then I guess I'll wear it to go to church.
I just want to say it's pretty amazing to only go to a store for 15 minutes. That was just a sidebar. I don't know what that's like.
So it's not that I'm for or against.
Right.
Again, I can see all the different sides, all the different viewpoints, but I also think it's very, again, we're not scientists, we're not doctors, we're not, right? We're normal everyday people, but the fact of the matter is there are many viewpoints out there, and even some of the highest regarded people in science and medicine have differing views on it. So is there 100%, way of yes, this is the way we should be going or not? In my viewpoint, there's not. But to get back on track, if it means I have to wear one to go to church, then I'm going to put that mask on. I'm going to go to church. Just like we talked about last week, it's important to be there.
Yeah, that's something really strong that came to my heart is, like I said, kick the devil's butt, put on the mask, and go to church. And I started thinking about Paul and when he was imprisoned and how I just imagine him being in prison with like shackles and chains and all bound up. And I imagine him, basically, he's in a prison cell and he just starts worshiping the Lord and the walls fall down. And I just thought to myself, if Paul can wear if he can wear shackles and chains and worship the Lord, why can't I wear a mask to go to church? And why would I let a piece of cloth keep me from worshiping the Lord? And for me, today was the first time I really ever wore a mask, and it was to go to church, and I didn't enjoy it, I can tell you that much. However, I felt like it was something that I needed to do because either that or I didn't go to church, basically. And why would I let something like a piece of cloth keep me from going to church? It's just all these stupid little things that right now, with how our church routine has become inconsistent and we haven't been in the routine of going to church. Now it's trying to get back into that routine of church being such an important priority and gathering together with other believers being such a staple in our belief and the way we practice Christianity, that for us to not do that for so many months and now trying to get back in the routine, but all the ways that we knew that church should be before has all changed. And now we're having to adapt and figure out how to thrive best with all the changes. And today was just beautiful because the way our church is doing it, families with younger children go into a separate room that's not the sanctuary, and they sit at a table and they color, and you can bring donuts and coffee or whatever. And it was just really cool to have that face-to-face sitting around a table with our children. And even though we've been doing church at home, sitting on couches for the past however many months, and we still did because our church does donuts on Sundays, or did before COVID. Thaddeus still thought it was really fun to go out and buy donuts. And even though I don't eat donuts, him and the kids do. And he just thought it was really fun to make that a priority, and always had coffee. And that's something that for us was like nostalgia of church or whatever. And so today when we were back there for this was our first time ever being in this atmosphere with having all of our children at church and sitting around the table. And it was just kind of cool to have that opportunity to do that with the kids and have that time to worship with the kids and do the actions, because they had little actions to go with the worship songs. I don't know what your church is doing, and all the churches are doing different things, and maybe for you that looks different, but just having those times to be like, oh, this is what it's like to do church as a family. It was just kind of fun.
And to note, Trisha says the first time we've been in that atmosphere. Again, last week we went for the first time back to church, and we did have distractions of having kids with us in the normal, quote unquote,
But we didn't
normal
have
part
our
of service.
youngest kid with.
But our youngest wasn't with
Right.
us. He was at grandma's, and he's 5. And so based on his age, if we're going to all go, we need to be in with him, because there is no extra early childhood type of service.
Right. So last week we were in the sanctuary, which was just beautiful, and worshiping together. And this week was a whole new challenge for us, and just going into the kids' church area. But they did a wonderful job of putting it together and making it kind of fun for the kids. So your church experience, whatever it is, embrace it. Wear the mask, kick the devil's butt, go to church, fellowship with other believers, get in that community of being around people who have common beliefs, because it just builds you up so much more because basically when you're not in the church building, you're not at home, like you're out in the real world, you're out shopping, you're out at work or wherever you are at school. It's just nice to know you have that community to depend on, and it's important to go to church.
So to wrap this week's episode up, we're just trying to hit home the fact that, again, your church is open back up, make it a priority to get there. And that might mean that you need to wear a mask and you don't necessarily agree with wearing a mask, but don't let that be something that stands in your way. So until next week, I'm Thaddeus.
And I'm Trish, and we love you guys.